make sure we can input the scientific specimens and then get the data back for the researchers. We're sort of like the handymen on the spot, and handy women.
So in terms of the broader question of space exploration, I got a lot of questions about what is the overall point in your mind. So what's the overall point of human exploration of space?
Well, you know, that's a question I was sort of going to pose to you. I've watched a few of the episodes of One Strange Rock now, and I see you're pondering that and talking to a lot of other astronauts, which is great. A lot of good information coming out of it. But in my mind, the question is, why wouldn't we explore space? And the point is that we know from our history on planet Earth that single planet species don't last forever. So it's important for us to learn to live off this planet if, as a human race, we want to continue our own existence. And we're probably talking, you know, I hope we're talking thousands of years in the future, but the reality is we need to learn to explore out into space and live in other places besides just this planet Earth. To me, that's the key.
Got it. So you know, in terms of that exploration, I understand and I see the difficulty of human beings living off of this planet. What are you learning in terms of what needs to happen for a human body and for the species to be able to exist off of this planet? What are some of the difficulties and some of the necessities for us to even be able to manage that?
Well, you know, that in itself is an interesting question, because if you think about the long-term effects and changes that the human body will probably make to itself if humans live off the planet for a long time. We were born to live in a 1G environment, a 1 gravity environment that we experience on Earth. And you can imagine, and a lot of science fiction shows depict the fact that if you leave this 1 gravity environment and start living in a place where you don't, for example, use your legs, you don't put any load on the chassis or the frame of your body, the skeletal structure, I think those parts of our body are going to start to change. So we need to figure out if we want to maintain that ability to always return to Earth or live in a 1G environment, or find other places that we can get to that offer that same sort of gravity load. Otherwise, we humans, as we know ourselves, are going to change. So that's going to be the challenge for us. I think we're overcoming the micro-G environment with the exercises that we do and the countermeasures that we take to counteract those things. But we're only staying in space up to a year. I think longer term presents some great challenges for ourselves, and that's going to be the big difficulty. Radiation is, of course, a big problem, and getting to those places is a challenge for us right now. We can't go that far in space. I think we need new technologies and new capabilities and propulsion systems to move faster through space.
So in terms of like the simple basics, right? So you on Earth, you know, people have to poop. You're like, it's important to poop on Earth, right? So when you're up there, I see your microphone floating, right? So I'm just, you know, this is a really basic, you know, this is a deep probing question here. I need to understand what you do with that. Like, how do you manage that?
Well, are you sure you want to talk about this this problem? Because it is pretty challenging. I like to say you can have a good day in the bathroom and you can have a really bad day in the bathroom, and you hope for the good days. The bad days can be challenging.
So has anyone attempted, you know, on Earth we talk about the you know, the Mile High Club. Has anyone, you know, attempted only for research purposes? For research purposes, has anyone attempted, you know, the process of procreating the human species in space? Has there been any study done to your knowledge?
All right, well, similar to the last question, I'll just say, are you sure we want to talk about this on the interview?
I'm just, you know, I'm a man of the people, Drew. I'm a man of the people. And it's important to me to ask the questions that the people want the answers to.
I'll just say, as far as I know, I have no knowledge of those tests being done, but I can imagine that that would present some unique opportunities.
It's interesting. Hold on, show me the picture, because when I found out that I was going to do an interview with you, I found out that we had a little bit in common, and I found a picture of you. I hope you can see this. I found a picture of you, and you're holding a hammer, and it looks like in your home, in your garage. Can you see that?
I can't see anything. It's one-way video, but I think I know the picture you're talking about.
Yeah, that one. And so the fans can see. And then I realized there's a similar picture with me with the same thing. I have the same kind of half shirt. You're holding a half shirt with a hammer, and I have a shot of me from the Fresh Prince with the half shirt on. And I'm concerned. I'm wondering what we were both thinking, that we could get away with a crop top half shirt, you know, and I guess great minds think alike.
That was in fashion. That was in fashion, but you won't be surprised to hear that that was shortly after I had a perm. So I had a perm at one point. I had a mohawk about the same time.
That is genius. So, all right. So one of the other big questions that came up was, like showering and hygiene, like how does that work in space? Like what does water do?
Well, water floats, and I'm going to try to find. Water basically makes a bubble. I'm sure you've seen pictures of people floating in water in space, and I like to use that analogy for how planets are formed, how loose objects and mass that attracts each other forms just a round floating ball. But for us to take a shower, we really don't take showers in space. We take a large towel, we saturate it with a lot of water, and then we basically just wipe ourselves down and dry ourselves off. And we do that every day, sometimes a couple times a day if we're exercising. So a real shower is something we just don't get up here, and it does take a lot of effort to keep yourself clean. It seems like every time I wipe myself off with a towel or washcloth, I'm just wiping off dirt, and it's hard to stay real clean up here, but we try.
So I guess that leads to my next question. Like, what does it smell like in the International Space Station? or what is the smell of space?
Well, let's see, right.
Smell?
Well, I can say right now we've got 6 guys up here, so you can use your imagination, but space does have a smell. Space itself has a smell. When we go outside for a spacewalk and we come back in with equipment, we smell what we think is the smell of ozone coming off of the material that comes back inside. So it's kind of like a burnt wire or a burnt metallic smell. But that's really only something we notice when we first come in from a spacewalk from being out in the vacuum of space. Internally, we got all kinds of smells in here, and a lot of it's related to food, some of it's related to hygiene, some of it's related to our gym clothes that are drying out to try to reclaim the water and humidity that's in them so we can actually drink that stuff eventually once it goes through the processor. There's a lot of smells up here, and we really do our best to try to control those things. We clean every weekend. We wipe down the surfaces all over the space station in order to keep down the bacteria and mold from growing, which we really don't have much of, but I think it's because we're so vigilant about keeping the place clean.
How fast are you traveling? Like how fast is the ISS moving?
How fast have you gone in a car?
Hey, man, hold on. Listen, probably 55 miles per hour. 55 is the fastest I've ever been in an automobile.
55. You can't. I can't drive 55, Will. That's just the way it goes, man. But right now we're doing about 17,500 miles an hour.
So you're circling at 17.5, right? So that means, so how many sunrises and sunsets do you see in the course of a day?
Yeah, we pick up 16 sunrises and sunsets. It takes me an hour and a half to get around the planet once.
Wow. So in that, I've heard a thing. You know, I'm doing the One Strange Rock. So I've heard of a thing called the overview effect. Have you experienced that? A couple of the astronauts on the show were talking about the overview effect. That when you go and you look back on the Earth, it has an emotional and psychological and spiritual effect on you. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, I think that it has that effect on everybody. Some people would say they already had that, Earth already had that impact on them. But I really think that as an astronaut, when you look at the planet, it changes your perspective. And I think there are very few astronauts that wouldn't say that we wish that every human being could see with their eyes, not just pictures, but with their own eyes, what the Earth looked like from space. And I personally think it would change us as a species. It would change us and make us all realize that Earth is really a spaceship, and we're living on a spaceship with just a thin shell that keeps us safe from the vacuum and darkness of space.
When you look back, what is the shape of the spaceship called Earth?
It's pretty darn round from my viewpoint, and there's no doubt about it. We're going around and round.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that was one of those questions I X'd out. I X'd out from my comment. I was like, I refuse to ask that question. So we have about 2 minutes left. So I just really want to say thank you for this. You know, when I was a child growing up, I was one of those kids. Oh, that's the water. Wow.
I don't have the water, but that's candy coated chocolate inside of a ball spinning.
Wow, that is fantastic.
It's kind of cool. These things all coalesce and start wrapping around the side of the ball here.
Yeah. That is fantastic. Well, so now, Drew, I just want to say
there's a lot of neat stuff to see up here.
No, that is fantastic. Thank you very much for your time. Is there anybody you have any family members or anybody you want to shout out? Somebody somebody you want to say hi to? Oh, that's hot.
Luckily, I get to talk to my family just about every day. But I just want to give a shout out to all the people watching and say thanks for tuning in. And it's always a pleasure to talk to folks on the ground. And we hope that people keep joining the adventure here and watching the great stuff, the great research we're doing up on the space station. We appreciate you dialing in to ask us some questions today, Will.
Hey, Drew, I appreciate you, man. Thank you very much for your service. God bless.
Thanks, sir. Take care.
All right now.